What's up, everybody? It's your boy Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates. I'm gonna invite some people in here. We're gonna get this thing started. This is basically a recap from today's show. We had an amazing show on how to end the gender war. Co-host Latrice Ross. A couple of thoughts that we didn't get to clarify I wanted to add to the game. So I'm gonna invite some people and I'm gonna get this 3 cents off my chest, if you will. Yep, just give me a second, get my invites out there, and we're gonna get this thing rolling. I ain't got a lot of time. About to go to work, but I want to get a couple things off my chest so we can get in this gender war that's out there, man. Tired of it. We tripping. We all tripping. We can put a stop to this joint, though. You can definitely put a joint stop to it. Give me a second, man. Get all these invites out. Some of y'all are probably not going to agree with me, but this is definitely going to be the stop to it. Let's see here what we got. Trying to get all y'all up in here. Bear with me. As many as I can. Bear with me. I'm inviting everybody up in this piece. We got to put a stop to this gender war. This shit whack. Real talk. All right, here we go. Couple more people. I'm inviting everybody this time. I don't normally invite this many people, but this so serious. We got to get everybody in on it. Here we go. Look like I might be getting close to the end. I'm inviting everybody in here. All right, that should be it. All right, let's see what we got. All right, found a couple more. Told you I'm going for everybody. Y'all bear with me on the invites. Then I'm coming with it. All right, here we go. That's it. All right, what we got? All right, y'all. Hope y'all can see me. I'm trying to get in the light. I got a few minutes. But again, Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates, we did an amazing show this morning, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. the Eastern Standard Time. We did the show on how to end the gender war, and it was a part at the end that I didn't get to add clarity to that I wanted to bring to the table. Lightning went out in here. What's that about? Okay, there we go. Sorry, y'all. So I'll make this quick. So I had a part I wanted to add clarity to. We were getting it out at the end of the show, and I wanted to expand on it a little bit on how to end the gender war. And so I shared a statement by this queen. Hey, what's up, queen? I shared a statement by this one queen that was very telling, and we were digging into it at the end, and the statement was simply this. Now, listen very closely, because people are going to hear something in this statement that's not in the statement. But listen very closely. Yeah, what's up, Bo? Good stuff. So with that said, the statement was, and we said it on the show, it comes from a sister by the name of Ro Cutno. This queen made this very poignant statement that applies to this morning's conversation. And the statement was, black males have failed to protect their females for 400 years and now are upset with females for acting as unprotected women. I kind of messed it up a little bit. I'm going to say it one more time, and I want to go into detail on this comment. She said, black males have failed to protect females for 400 years and now are mad at them for acting as unprotected females do. So I shared that statement. I put it up on the Middle Dollar Facebook page probably about a month ago, and people were in an uproar. And my co-host said in response to that, she said, well, black men couldn't protect women 400 years ago when we were first coming here under enslavement. My response to her on the show was this. I said, that statement that Rose, she's known, that statement that she made, I says, it's a literal statement. She's not placing blame. And what I said in response to my co-host was this. I says, just because black men could not protect black women 400 years ago does not change the fact that they didn't. I want to peel that back. And I said, she wrote the statement literally, not blaming. And again, my response was, just because black men, we couldn't protect our women 400 years ago, does not change the fact that we didn't. And so when we were having this amazing discussion, I definitely recommend that people go back and listen to the show. But when we were having this amazing discussion, what my response was breaking down as we were getting into the post-traumatic things that are passed down from, as I mentioned on the show, from when we were first brought here and stepped foot on this land as enslaved Africans for our ancestors. When that happened, we were definitely in a situation, as she said, black men could not protect their women. And what I ended up explaining on the show was, ever since that period, time frame, to being enslaved, to emancipation, through Jim Crow, what I explained on the show was, unfortunately, a subconscious reality that, in my opinion, has been passed down throughout the generations has been this concept. Us as African-American men, we have subconsciously been chasing our manhood from the day that we could no longer protect our women, which has been from the day we stepped foot on American soil as enslaved Africans, for those who did. You know, the majority of our ancestors were brought here that way. Not all of them, but the majority were. And so the fact of the matter, unfortunately, since that is a fact. Hey, Ro, I'm talking about you, Ro. You got to go back and watch the beginning. I gave you a quote. Glad to have you watching, Queen. I was back. I put up your quote about black men failing to protect women from 400 years ago, and now we're upset that black women act unprotected. I just shared that quote with the live. I just Rose on here, so I'm just letting her know what the beginning was. So I talked about your quote on my show today, and I was sharing with people, while black men could not protect their women 400 years ago, it doesn't change the fact that we didn't. And so the reason I wanted to go in depth about that comment is because when we start having conversations, what's up, Eddie? So when we start having conversations about this gender war, there's so much attention put on who's to blame, and the entire concentration goes on who's to blame, that we never get to the next step, which is, how do we change it? The entire concentration, when black men and women are going back and forth and pointing the finger, they're pointing the finger as if who takes on the most blame will be the start of the fix. Well, if you think about that comment and the unfortunate reality of not being able to protect our women when we were, in a sense, first brought here, quote unquote, in chains, if you think about that reality, well, the trauma that has been passed down and perpetuated throughout the last 400 years and continues to still be perpetuated is a situation where now, because we don't think about that original history and that our unfortunate inability as a culture, as men, to protect our women, because we don't want to go back that far and think about that reality, we now have a gender war where we place all the blame on, for example, the feminist movement pushing these ideas that in fact are detrimental to the black family. I am totally against the feminist movement. But what we fail to understand, without going back to that original day of stepping on this earth, we blame the feminist movement as if it created the dilemma. What happens is, because of that original inability to protect our women and not be there for them, even under the circumstances of enslavement, yes, harsh, but it is a reality. Well, due to that, then the experience for keeping the black family together has been much more difficult, because the feminist movement was able to basically convince some of our sisters who did not have men, or who had men who had not, in a sense, gained their manhood from the standpoint of being protective of our women, because that had been normalized through, unfortunately, even the breeding that happened during enslavement, because these things became normalized, where there were some men who never, in a sense, took their place again. And so because there were African American men who, as I said on the show, took on ways of our oppressor and learned ideas that were not ideal to our culture and were not protective of our women, because that's not where we came from. But because we took on, in general, because we took on ways of our oppressors, then by not protecting, then there was an agenda in the feminist movement to derail families. That's within all cultures. But what happened in the black culture specifically was, some of our women were able to attach to those ideas, but they couldn't have attached to those ideas had we been in our rightful place and in our role of being protective. Don't take anything of what I'm saying as wasting time on who's to blame. Because again, her original statement that black men have failed to protect over the last 400 years is a factual statement that has nothing to do with whose fault it is. But when you think of that reality, then in 2020, it is time to step up and step back in the role of being those protectors, because if we step into those roles, then we won't have this gender war, this gender fight with our women, who would be glad, in a sense, to give us our roles back, if you would, per se. But because there's been trauma passed down, and too many of our men and boys, and the cycle of families without fathers to show them the way, to give them their rites of passage and say, here's how you stay and protect a woman, when we're not learning that, because you don't inherently have it. It's in your nature if it's taught to you. But when that cycle is not happening, and you're not learning it in a natural family environment, then you get a lot of people, a lot of men, who now accept westernized values for what manhood looks like, and it serves our community no purpose. So yes, it was stripped of us, but if we admit that and admit that reality, then the next question becomes, how do we change it? Not wasting time on if women didn't act this way. And while there's things that black men and black women both could and should do, as I've always offered, the first step is, in my opinion, full acknowledgement of how we got here. And the full acknowledgement, in my opinion, is from day one, as a culture, African American men, rightfully so, have been chasing their manhood. And in some cases, we've chased manhood that is ineffective for our overall community. And some have taken on, in a sense, some aspects of patriarchy that are a power over dynamic, not the natural, what's the word I'm looking for? Complementary. There are things that are natural to us in the masculine. There are things that are natural to our women in the feminine. That is a natural complement. And so full respect for both roles makes things come together. But when we take on the ways of our oppressor and put the woman below us and follow that method, and again, we took that on because it is very, as I said on the show, it is quite common that any group, when oppressed for a long period of time, will start desiring, unfortunately, praise from their oppressors. And so there is a historical trauma based on things that actually happened to our community for why we, in my opinion, I think this is fact. Again, you may have not heard this approach before, but it is a fact why at one time a small group of our men chased aspects of manhood that in fact were not manhood. They were the ways of quote unquote our oppressors. And unfortunately, over time, as the black family continued to be broke down in this country, you end up getting more men. So it eventually becomes exponential. So while, for example, even after the enslavement period, a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of our enslaved ancestors, in a quote unquote, when they were emancipated based on law, a lot of them easily went and got married. They married even more so than the majority culture, if you will. They had a long period of getting married even after enslavement. And I talked about this on the show. We played a cut from Lonnie Love, and if y'all remember that cut where she was putting a blanket statement saying black men don't know how to be faithful and things of that nature. And that was a very unfair blanket statement. But within that statement, she talked about, based on our enslavement, the black family had never been together. And that's not true for up until the 1960s, up until the 1970s. So even after our ancestors experienced enslavement, they definitely still understood the need to be together as a family, again, even more so than the majority culture for a long period of time. Then there were systemic attacks of taking the man out of the home, to include mass incarceration, that made what I've been talking about exponential. So even though a big portion of our community would come together in marriage, there was always, unfortunately, a portion who still seek the approval. If you think about even on certain plantations, there were certain black men, based on their genes, they would in a sense be studied out. And so that type of approval, because you would actually get approval from the quote unquote slave master, if you will, for being that stud that could create more, make more babies, if you would. And so even during the period where culturally we were coming together, there was unfortunately an element of men where, in a sense, the pimp culture within our community developed. We didn't start the quote unquote the oldest profession, but how it became dominant within our community, there were some who continued to chase after that type of notoriety, and the reward was money that most could not make. So that continued to grow. And then culturally, as the feminist movement came into play and started attacking families and put a focus on the black family specifically, sorry y'all, when that happened, then we now see a lot of what we see today. I'm sorry about the light, it went out on me. But we see a lot of what happened today, and now we reduce it to the feminist movement alone as the issue. And the first acknowledgement has to be, in general, as African American men, if you can still hear me, sorry about the light, but in general, we have not been there. In general, there's plenty of good brothers out there that are stepping up to the role. So I'm not doing the Lonnie Love thing of throwing a blanket statement on African American men, but I'm talking about from a cultural, specifically American gender war aspect, that men, I say we would do ourselves a favor to say, okay, in general, our women, some of them attached to these ideas in the feminist movement that are detrimental to our community, but they've attached to it based on a real life history of some of the treatment they've received, or as Ro beautifully said in her statement, we as men are upset by the fact that they act as unprotected women. We are. I tell it on the show. Black men sit around all the time talking about how it is hard to deal with a quote unquote strong, independent woman. But how did that come into place? It only came into place by our sisters and queens being unprotected. Because otherwise, if we were there already, could no agenda or movement come in and convince our women that they don't need us? So that's the extension of what I wanted to explain on the show that I didn't get to continue, is ownership. of that responsibility. I'm personally guilty of it in a sense. When I say personally guilty, meaning I need to step into my role, find a wife, have a family, stay in that situation. That's the responsibility of how you protect women properly. All other aspects that does not include finding a wife who I know will be a good mother and stand with her to create generational wealth. Any other aspect other than that ain't the move. It's not the move culturally. So that's what I wanted to get out as an extension of today's show. Still highly recommend that you go check it out. Go to Blog Talk Radio, go to the top of the Mental Dialogue Facebook page, and you can check out the full show. With that said, I'm out. It's your boy Montoya Smith, a.k.a. Black Socrates. All I ask is that you think.